Hello and welcome to the audio version for Diary of a Husker. This is David Kolowski, the author of the book, and I'm going to read this to you as well as throw in a little commentary here and there and hopefully answer some frequently asked questions along the way. This audiobook is fully copyrighted under the ISBN 978-0-979-5931-3-0 through Big Red Press, LLC. While you listen to this audiobook, or while you're at home reading through your copy of Diary of a Husker, I encourage you to flip through some old game programs or go on to Huskers.com or HuskerStories.com, the website I set up for this book, and look at some of the guys that I mentioned here in the book and try to put a face with the name and see that you can really bring this story to life, because it is a true story. And that was the main intention, just to give a full life of a Husker view of what's going on. Now, before we get started, take a second to make sure your cleats are laced up tight and your helmet is on, because here we go with Diary of a Husker. The following is a foreword by Eric Crouch. When I came to the University of Nebraska, I had very high expectations for my time on the football field. I just came from a very successful high school football program at Millard North High School in Omaha, and I was entering a very important part of my life as a student and an athlete. After accepting the offer to play for the Huskers, I was very excited about my future at the University of Nebraska, but I still didn't know exactly what to expect. I remember being called to head coach Tom Osborne's office after my first training camp in 1997. He told me that it was in the best interests of the team and my career if I took a medical redshirt year. I was floored to hear this news, but I knew he was right. I took Coach Osborne's advice and was placed on a medical redshirt. There were two reasons I was placed on the medical redshirt list. The first was that I needed 2 operations. The second reason was that I wasn't going to see any playing time anyway. Scott Frost was the starter at the time, and Frankie London and Bobby Newcomb were also in the picture at quarterback. Being injured and out for the year was difficult for me to handle. I was morbidly depressed and homesick during this time. I honestly felt that I would never be the same. I still remember the day that I left the hospital in a wheelchair with a cast on each leg. What a hit to my ego. It was very painful, although it wasn't that serious in hindsight. Basically, I had to stay off my legs for 2 weeks straight. I could barely get off my bed to reach my crutches. My ankle felt like it had a compound fracture, and I remember the other players telling me that it looked like I was attacked by a shark when they saw the scar behind my left knee. Towards the end of the season, I had the opportunity to play on the scout team. I got to know a lot of the players during that time. Athletes that were on the scout team were mainly new guys, and there was a mix of scholarship and walk-on players. This mixture of teammates gave me the opportunity to get to know and build relationships with most of the new players on the team. It was a very important time for most of us because it allowed us to bond with one another. This bonding is what people in the sports industry always talk about. When a football player has great camaraderie and chemistry, they have a better chance for success. Camaraderie and chemistry are formed by taking small steps. The first small step was to build a solid relationship with your teammates. However, I definitely sensed there was an abnormal amount of animosity on the scout team. I felt that every player was not content with being on the scout team. Most players felt that they were not getting a fair chance, or that they were better than the guy ahead of them on the depth chart. To be honest, you had to have that feeling. That feeling meant that you wanted more. You wanted to compete and you wanted to be the best. You needed to have that feeling about yourself, or you probably didn't deserve to be there. Similarly, if you were content to be on the scout team, it was unlikely that you would ever play. Most of the teammates were very cool, and in return, I was cool to them. I never felt there was anyone on the team that I didn't get along with. I remember sitting next to all the quarterbacks in the locker room and having a special bond between us. It was like we had each other's backs, even though we were competing against each other for a job. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. I think this was the reason we had so much success. It didn't matter what position we were or the place on the depth chart. What mattered is that we came together for one common goal, and that goal was to win the game on Saturday. Among the quarterbacks, we discovered that we had something in common between our personal and professional goals. And that was that we all wanted to be successful in whatever we did. We worked hard to build this success, and in the process became leaders on and off the field. Our teammates looked up to us to make decisions. It was a lot of pressure, but our success as a team depended on the quarterbacks taking control. Imagine spending 8 hours a day thinking about football, in meetings, on the practice field, you name it. With so much effort put into it, you have to start believing in something. As a quarterback, you have to make people believe in you. Your friends and family start relying on you to make quick and efficient decisions. I felt like I had a special bond, not only with the quarterbacks, but also every player on the team. This feeling took some time to develop. I had this feeling after my medical redshirt year in 1998. I knew I was not going to be the starting quarterback that year, but I ended up starting 8 games and playing in 11. I had a strong will to succeed, and I believed that I could lead the Huskers to success. I had the silent confidence that was necessary, and I also had deep motivation from many sources. Most of my motivation stemmed from outside factors. Growing up, I was always told that I was too small, too short, too slow, or whatever. Believe me, this was enough motivation. This same motivation now pushed me to compete for the starting quarterback job. The process I went through to be the first-string quarterback in 1999 was a character builder for me. I competed with Bobby Newcomb and Frankie London all spring, summer, and fall camp for the starting job. Yet, at the beginning of the season, I was not the starting quarterback. I was shocked that I didn't get a start and almost quit playing football at that point in my career. Instead, I told head coach Frank Solich that I would do anything to get on the field to help the team win. I just wanted to play. I was told that I would get an opportunity as a receiver, so I changed positions. I was also told that I would still be used as quarterback at some point in the game. The first game of the 1999 season was a road game against the University of Iowa. At the beginning of the game, I was told by Coach Solich and quarterbacks Coach Turner Gill that I could see some game time in the second quarter. We were struggling in the second quarter when my number was called. I came into the game and we ended up routing Iowa 42-7. This may have been a good starting point for my college career, but I believe it was actually the next game against the University of California at Berkeley. I replaced Bobby again in the second quarter of the game and had a touchdown running, throwing, and catching. The next day, the Lincoln Journal-Star was comparing me to the 1972 Heisman Trophy winner Johnny Rodgers. I was named the new starter that next week against Southern Mississippi. From then on, I was the starting quarterback for the 99, 2000, and 2001 seasons. During my career at Nebraska, I was fortunate enough to make many friends on the football team. I had the opportunity to get to know many of the walk-on players. I felt that walk-ons were a very important part of the success at Nebraska. They were definitely a much bigger part of the success than they were given credit for. I remember that the walk-on program allowed our team to have about 185 athletes. We were then able to practice with 3 teams getting reps at each practice. This meant that our first, second, and third team players were all getting prepared for the upcoming game. Most universities could only prepare the first and second team depth charts because they didn't have the number of players that Nebraska had. Thanks to this depth, if we had an injury at any game, we had another player that could come in and perform like nothing ever happened. The walk-on athletes had things a bit different than the scholarship athletes. There were the obvious things like having to pay for books, tuition, and other college needs. For several guys, this meant possibly having another job on the side. I really had a great amount of respect for the walk-ons. I felt that they really wanted to be a part of the program like everyone else, but I also felt they had to try harder to get there. Since they didn't have the security of a scholarship, they had to impress the coaches more often and be able to do more on the field. There have been several walk-ons that have become starters at Nebraska and went on to have great professional careers. But for the majority, that does not happen. The walk-ons were against all odds, and I respected them for that reason. For many walk-ons, I guess it came down to just being part of the team at Nebraska, because I know I would never have been able to do what many walk-ons did. They were able to stick it out when they knew they weren't going to play. There were some players that never got to play at Nebraska in their 4 or 5 years on the team. They practiced every day, went through the training camp every year, but never got one snap in a game. That didn't happen very often because most players got some sort of playing time during our huge wins, but it did happen to a few. I know that I would have had trouble with that, and that's why I have so much respect for what they did and how they did it. I would like to thank the walk-ons for what they did. If it wasn't for them, I don't know if I would have had the same success that I did at Nebraska. As a matter of fact, I know that I would not have the success I did. The diary that follows, written by fellow teammate David Kolowski, is the complete story of the life of a walk-on at the University of Nebraska. Eric Crouch, August 2006. Now, on a little side note here, one thing I find really interesting about what Eric wrote for this book is that he talked about the steps he went through to become a starter, but then he kind of brushed over his success and didn't really talk about it. Obviously, he was a Heisman Trophy winner in 2001, along with many other awards, and when you have that in your back pocket, you can rightfully brag about it. There's no shame in that. But for whatever reason, he didn't. And I think that really speaks to his modesty and just his overall work ethic. He was there to just work hard and get things done for the team, and the personal glories that he was able to amass didn't really matter to him, and they were just a nice little trinket to take home on the weekends. For him, the wins as a team every Saturday were more important than anything else. And Eric is probably one of the greatest guys I had the opportunity to play with during my time there at Nebraska, and just a wonderful man, and I wish him all the best in everything he does. My story starts in the summer of 1998. Here I am, in the summer after my high school graduation, getting ready to be a part of one of the biggest college football programs in the country. The Huskers are fresh off winning the national championship this last year, not to mention 3 of the last 4 years, so I know I definitely have my work cut out for me. As a high school freshman, I would not have believed it if someone had told me that I would play for the Huskers one day. It's every Nebraska boy's dream to play for the Huskers. Born and raised in Omaha, we were only an hour away from Memorial Stadium, which becomes Nebraska's 3rd largest city on game days, and I saw several games there when I was growing up. However, as a freshman in high school, I was undersized. 5'11", 175 pounds, the second-string center on the B team, and without much muscle or any real chances of playing. I remember testing out before the season started, where the coaches make you run, jump, and do all sorts of things so they can narrow you down for which team they want you on. I stepped up to the line for the 40-yard dash for the first time in my life, and I took off, noticing the look of amazement on the faces as I flew past. At least, that's what I thought until I got my time. 7 seconds flat. Pathetically slow. It took me a while to develop the necessary skills to be a good player. My dad taught me how to long snap, and that's snapping the ball between your legs for punts and field goals, from anywhere from 7 to 14 yards. And this has been one of those skills that's really helped me get noticed. My dad was also a big influence on me being a lineman, teaching me what he knew after being a standout lineman for Lake Forest College, and then being drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. By my senior year, I was 6'4", 245 pounds. My offensive line coach, Mr. Joe Vocek, kept encouraging me about my potential, and I started to see it too. My frame was coming into shape, and that was one of the things recruiters looked for. If I had been unable to get any bigger, and had a body that could not sport a lot of muscle, the Huskers would have never considered me. I wasn't highly recruited as a high school senior. Most of my recruiting letters came from Division III colleges in Nebraska and the surrounding states. My first letter from the Huskers was a simple form letter, telling me the basis of the program. I dismissed it as a formality, because I had attended the summer clinics the past 3 summers, but I quickly realized they were serious. I was invited to the last 3 home games, and each time I had a very attractive student escort. During these visits, we always had a buffet lunch, met the coaches, and then Coach Tom Osborne gave us a little speech before he went to the locker room before the game. For these types of recruiting visits, the NCAA allows the team to provide 3 free tickets for myself and my parents. There were pretty nice seats, too, right on the 30-yard line and about 15 rows up. Before taking our seats, we watched from the sideline as the team warmed up. Parents had to leave the field, and then recruits got to see the team run onto the field. This was the biggest thrill to watch, the sensation of the loud, pulsing music making everyone in the stadium clap in unison, and then hearing the roar of the crowd as the players charged onto the field was just overwhelming. In mid-November, I was informed that the Huskers wanted me to walk on. This meant they wanted me on the team, but they didn't want me enough to waste a scholarship on me. This was a big gamble on their part, because they were relying solely on my potential. I was not one of the best, but I guess they felt that I would develop to be one of the best under their walk-on program. It was also a gamble on my part. I needed to decide if I wanted to go to a school where I was not guaranteed a position. I hoped that my long-snapping skill would allow me to play a small role in a huge organization, but it was entirely possible that I would never play. My decision was further complicated when legendary head coach Tom Osborne retired a short time later. Unsure of the future, I took a chance to be on the best team in the nation and hoped to prove myself on the field. I'm so nervous leading up to the first day of workouts in Lincoln that I almost got into a car accident that would have been entirely my fault. I'm not sure what's ahead of me, but I can guess it's going to be a lot of hard work. This next part's a little afterthought section I put in afterwards. Later on, I learned that my invitation to walk on was not as valuable as I had thought. The program was overflowing with walk-ons. Offers were made to guys all across the country to walk on, and who wouldn't want to be a part of this team after the 4 years they just had with 3 national championships? Their gamble on me, as well as many other guys, was backed by the fact that they would have live blocking dummies for 5 years. My freshman year, we had more than 180 guys on the team. With only about 40 guys ever playing in a single game, that leaves 140 to do nothing but practice. All the fellow walk-ons had done fairly well in high school, so to come to college and find up to 6 guys ahead of you on the depth chart was very discouraging. With the coaches struggling just to learn everyone's name, the possibility of impressing them seemed limited. Instead of a close-knit group of athletes working hard to make each other better, we slowly turned into divided positional groups with a lot of fighting and backstabbing to try to get that starting spot. As time wore on, many guys had mentally given up and were just sticking around for the benefits. Their example was followed by the next round of guys who saw that hard work will only get a person nowhere unless you're on scholarship or a coach's favorite. Apathy abounded, intensity decreased. We knew we wouldn't play, but we knew how much to do to not get cut, and we didn't care anymore. The inevitable decline of the team will become clearer later on. I'll do my best to foreshadow or explain any necessary things within these afterthought sections. 1998 Summer Conditioning. The off-season program starts soon after the last game is played. After a couple weeks off for rest and rehabilitation, the workouts begin and continue through the winter and summer straight into fall. Some guys even graduate from high school midway through the senior season and start up with a team in January. This gives them an opportunity to go through spring practices and really have a leg up on other guys coming in. The rest of us show up for the summer conditioning if we're close enough to Lincoln, and this is where it all started for me. The workout program for the summer conditioning lasts about 10 weeks on average. With only weekends and Wednesdays off, the workouts keep you pretty busy. This first summer we did our running workouts right before our lifting in the evening. In later years we would split that up so we would lift in the morning and run in the evening. Either way, a lot of time and energy went into these sessions. Monday, June 8, 1998. Today was the first time I entered Memorial Stadium as a Husker. I arrived at the South Stadium Complex, which is a building tucked neatly under the south end of the stadium, and houses the football offices, training room, and locker room. I got there at 5 o'clock this evening to start my workouts with the team. Another major structure within the stadium is the Hewitt Center, which sits under the west side of the stadium and houses the cafeteria, academic center, and weight room, as well as the mini Hall of Fame museum. I found the cafeteria and joined the rest of the team for our meeting. We were given information about eligibility and rules, and our new head coach, Frank Solich, talked about Louisiana Tech, our first opponent. He read a whole list of accomplishments, records, and national rankings that have been posted by Tech, and told us to start thinking about them now. The freshmen had to introduce themselves by standing up and saying their name and high school, and I actually got tongue-tied just trying to do that. I guess the excitement of being in a place that is so sacred to all of Nebraska was getting to me. I then went to the training room to take a small physical and sign a waiver that said the university was legally covered for me to use the weight room. I finally made it to the weight room and met up with Chad and Luke Smith, brothers who are walking on as well as one of the weight room staff. We had a fairly simple workout, but I became surprisingly sore later on. After lifting, I filled my squirt bottle up with some recovery mix and headed back to Omaha. I think I'm going to like it here. This next section I added later on. Connected to the weight room was a small room with some cardio equipment as well as some offices for the sports nutritionist who regulates our meals and makes suggestions to certain guys about their weight. This room also had a drink dispenser with Gatorade-type energy drink mix and a thick, high-calorie meal supplement drink called Recovery Mix. The nutrition staff was also responsible for getting us our creatine before and after workouts. Later, the NCAA barred schools from supplying any supplements at all, including creatine. The creatine, for those of you who don't know, is a supplement that is designed to help speed up the recovery process after a heavy workout. It's mostly used by people like football players who want to put on a lot of lean mass. Tuesday, June 9th, 1998. I arrived slightly late, even though I didn't realize it. Nobody spread the word to me that I was supposed to be there for an earlier offensive line drill in the pit. The pit is an old field house at the north end of the stadium that has since been destroyed in the name of progress. It was located right where the new weight room is today, and the exterior of the new weight room matches the exterior of the pit, how it used to look. I'll need to be here on time every day to make a good impression, even though the coaches aren't allowed to be a part of this. The NCAA forbids the coaching staff, except for the strength coaches, from interacting with the athletes in any coaching capacity except during specified times like spring practice and the regular season. The strength coaches, so far, have picked apart many of my lifts to help me do them better. In particular, squat was one of my lifts that I needed a lot of work on, and I ended up having to back off from the weight quite a bit. It's become pretty apparent that most of the guys who come out of high school saying they can squat over 400 pounds actually were using terrible form and had to be broken down to a very light weight for their own good. Thursday, June 11th, 1998. We were warned about being late to the offensive line workouts, but it had to happen to someone. Incoming freshman Wes Cody showed up late and was bound to pay for it later, valid excuse or not. We started practice with a light warm-up and stretching, and then we started some drills on a sled loaded with blocking dummies. This sled was about a 5-man sled, and we would line up, and it was pressed up against the wall, so it wasn't going to move anywhere. But we would use that wall point, the corner of the wall, as a fulcrum, and pick the sled up with a powerful punch and drop it. And we would shuffle down to the next dummy and punch it and drop it. Shuffle over, punch and drop, and over and over. We did a progression line through that many, many times. We spent about a half hour on the sled work, and then the fun began. We all went out onto the field to watch Wes Cody run steps as a punishment for being late. And, of course, the freshmen had to join in too. The south part of the stadium has about 100 rows of seats, and the stairs get steeper the higher you go. All 5 of the freshmen, including me, staggered ourselves along the steps and cheered Wes by singing the great Village People song, YMCA, while doing the actions, of course. Then we all had to run stairs while singing Macho Man. I was lightheaded when I was doing this sled, but now I felt like I was going to die. When we finished, my legs were quivering, my shirt was soaked, my mouth was parched, but I knew I had to stick it out. I made it to the weight room, taking slow, short steps. My legs were too tired to support me, so I tried not to bend them too much. After a short rest, I started my lifting routine and lived with some new guys. It's a good thing that this was an easy lifting day, because I was completely worn out. I'm amazed at how friendly everyone is here. You can't pass me a play without saying hi, and the older players introduce themselves to me before I even know they're there. I guess the mentality of the team is that we are all some of the best athletes in the state, and everyone here is unified by the desire to be the best and to do the best. Here, you aren't just playing for your team or your school. You're playing for your state. Monday, June 15, 1998. Today was a pretty good day. We worked on learning some of the offensive line plays, and with the help of the older guys, I think we're progressing pretty quickly. Another guy showed up late to practice and earned himself 4 sets of steps. As before, freshmen spread out along the steps, and this time we had to take our shirts off and do a hula dance. Dominic Raiola was the reason for this. He's from Hawaii, and he wore an ugly pair of Hawaiian shorts to practice. His punishment was to stand at the top of the stairs and sing the University of Hawaii's theme song while doing a hula. Luckily, we didn't have to run a set ourselves. In the weight room later on, Jason Schwab, starting tackle and former walk-on himself, called me over and told me he liked my hustle today. It's a big compliment to hear this from one of the veteran upperclassmen, and it basically made my day. The nutritionist, Dave Ellis, checked our body fat percentage today. They keep a running total of all the guys, and I have started out at 17%, weighing in at 275 pounds. This is a pretty good report for a lineman, even though Ellis thought I needed to fill out my shoulders a little more. Hopefully, my late developing body will allow this to happen. Thursday, June 18, 1998. I was way too close to being late today. The trains near the stadium cut me off, but I sped the rest of the way and ran into the pit with 1 minute to spare. We had a relatively easy workout, which really surprised me, and we didn't have to run any stairs. I had a good, quick lifting workout, and then a couple of other freshmen and I went back to the field house to work on some of the O-line drills to improve our overall footwork and timing with the sled. I think this really helped. Monday, June 22, 1998. We started agility drills today. After an incredibly long warm-up period, we started on the jump ropes. This one got to me. We did a lot of work with different shuffle steps, crossovers, and other footworks, all while jumping the ropes and moving 15 yards as quickly as possible. Before, all I've ever done with jump ropes is stand in one spot and whoop it around. I need a lot of work on this. We then ran some cone and bag courses, and I thought I did pretty well. Then we did low ropes, and this is basically a rope ladder laid on the ground with 2 columns of 10 squares, which I had a little trouble with at the start, but finished fairly strong. With those, we're supposed to run over the ropes, stepping in each square either once or twice as fast as you can, and then sprint out at the end. We then went to the Northwest Field House and worked on some pass protection with the defense. After all the O-line stuff, Jason Schwab, Adam Jolch, the other starting tackle, Justin Valencia, another new walk-on, and I all went to the field house and worked on some more pass protection. Jason has proven to be one of the nicest guys I've met. He seems genuine in his desire to help me along the way. I guess he remembers how overwhelming it was his freshman year. I think he sees some potential in me, and I know he's right. I'm going to give this my all and become the best I can be, but I know it won't happen overnight, and it's going to take a lot of patience on my part, to put up with disappointment here and there. Thursday, June 25th, 1998. Today, I got a taste of how hot it can get from summer workouts. It was 95 degrees today, and about 110 degrees in the field, and I was already tired from being at new student enrollment all day long. I started off strong in the drills, but in the transition from the low ropes to the jump ropes, I got sidetracked by having to do push-ups, so I had to run the jump ropes without much of a break. I had just enough time to get my mouth wet at the water fountain, and that had to last me. I made it to the jump rope station and did much better this time, thanks to a little overtime we put in the other day. With the sun beating down, my shoes felt like ovens, and I could feel with each step that I was getting blisters. My feet were on fire, my head was light, my legs were shaking, and my lungs felt like they're going to implode, but I knew I had to remain strong. I managed to finish, using up all my energy to show the guys I won't do anything halfway. After a good break in the drink room, I did my complete lifting workout and went home entirely exhausted. Thursday, July 2nd, 1998. I showed up late to practice. Apparently they moved the stretching and warm-up session to 5:15, and nobody told us. That didn't matter, luckily, and I jumped right into the stretching. We started on the low ropes, and I improved a lot. Many of the players noticed this and complimented me. John Archer, the head strength coach who also works with the O-line, told me that I looked a lot better and that my footwork is really looking good too. I also did some long snaps to Schwab and Russ Hochstein, who's a sophomore guard, and they were impressed with that as well. I think I'm beginning to be accepted into the Huskers. There's lifting at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, but I will be on my way to Illinois to see family for the 4th of July. There was talk about a punishment for those who miss lifting, but how am I to get around this? I guess I'll just take whatever they give me and have to live with it. Monday, July 13th, 1998. In our drills today, Archer and Heskey complimented me on almost everything we did. On the other hand, I started the jump rope circuit with a rope that was too short and had trouble with many of the drills. I later changed ropes and did much better. It was blistering hot and humid today, and the heat took its toll on all of us. During the pass pro drill with the defense, one excessive block turned into a potential brawl between the offense and the defense. Luckily, most of us still had cool heads and stopped it immediately. The veterans told us that this happens a lot, so we should stick together and fight as a group. I think this is just stupid. We are some of the best players in the nation brought together to play as a team. If we begin to divide into separate gangs where we need to watch each other's back, then we've lost our unity. Somebody is bound to mess up or have a disagreement with another player, but the solution should not be to fight. Monday, July 27, 1998. I heard today was a pretty hard practice. I wouldn't know because I spent some time with the police and a tow truck after falling asleep at the wheel and driving my mom's Buick straight into a median. I was really tired after spending the last week at the Shrine Bowl camp, as well as working all day. The Shrine Bowl camp is like a high school all-star game, and included some of the hottest practices I've ever been through. I played as a backup center in the game and helped come away with the win. After fighting sleep the whole way down the interstate from Omaha, I just pulled off on 27th Street in Lincoln, heading into town towards the stadium, when the sleep finally got the best of me. The next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by the car slamming into the median, shearing the oil pan straight off the engine block, plowing right through a road sign that smashed the window on its way over the top of the car, while also slicing some big gashes into the roof. The two right tires were popped, and I finally was able to pull the car over to the side of the road, turn the smoking engine off, and then call the police. When I got home, my missed workout was replaced by carrying 45 railroad ties with my dad from the driveway to the backyard. That ought to do it. Tuesday, July 28, 1998. I was set up with a job by the Huskers at a computer company called Intercom here in Omaha. I won't move to Lincoln until school starts in the fall, so I have to drive an hour each way to get to the afternoon workouts. Today, I left work after 2 hours and went home to sleep until the workout. I think I would do this every day if it wouldn't get me fired. It looks like I won't have a vehicle for my freshman year after wrecking my mom's. The workout was a little more intense today, but I did just fine. I think the Shrine Bowl helped me get in better shape. After the lifting, I was ready to go home and crash, but this time I made it home and crashed on the living room floor and not in my car. Friday, July 31st, 1998. With two-a-day practices starting Monday, this is the last day the upperclassmen have complete control over the freshmen, and they lived it up. They made us do sit-ups and push-ups with a couple extra sets just for fun. Then Adam Jolch and Jason Schwab made us run steps in the north end zone. We did enough steps to make us all incredibly worn out. Probably 10 or more sets, I lost track. After a long rest break, we crawled into the weight room and did a perfunctory lifting job. I won't be involved in the two-a-day practices this year, also known as fall camp, because there's an NCAA rule that only allows 105 players to go through with the practices. The scholarship freshmen are the only freshmen required to participate. Once school is in session, I'll be able to join the team for practices. Tuesday, August 4th, 1998. I picked up Justin in Valencia, and we headed in for an involuntary workout. The two of us doubled the number of people in the weight room. We did a good, quick workout and then left. I don't really mind not going to two-a-days, but I know I'm missing out on a lot of important stuff that will put the scholarship freshmen further ahead of me. I guess that means I'll just have to work that much harder. Thursday, August 6th, 1998. Today was probably the hardest and most intense conditioning practice yet. We had a group of 18 freshmen and did a variety of speed and agility drills, which all left us entirely exhausted. It's still better than two-a-days. Monday, August 17th, 1998. Last Saturday, I went to a funeral. This was for a good friend and all-around great guy named Jared Russell. He was involved in a car accident while driving on a beer run at very high speeds. This shows how quickly and how strangely things can happen. I don't know if he had been drinking, but in Jared's memory, I'm making a pledge to myself to not drink in college. Truthfully, I have drank before, so I know what it's like, and I wasn't that thrilled with it anyways. I don't think it's very fun to willfully limit the control of your motor skills. I also had an alcoholic grandfather who took his own life before I ever met him, which makes this pledge that much more personal. I know that this will be a very difficult pledge to keep, but I need to stay strong and not get caught up in the peer pressure and college culture. This is a little afterthought section. Sadly, this is one of the promises I didn't get to keep. I underestimated what I was getting into, the friends that I would make, the atmosphere of peer pressure, and sometimes just a simple desire to take a night off mentally and escape to a drunken stupor. As you'll continue to see, when football takes more control of my life, sometimes it was the only way to get away, if only temporarily. Looking back, I'm disappointed that I let myself do this, that I did that to my body, and that I wasted so much time and money in the stupid pursuit. What's even worse is that I was not the only one who came in with such a plan and ended up failing. Saturday, August 22nd, 1998. All the new guys were tested today, which included taking numerous measurements and doing 10 and 40-yard dashes, vertical jump, and agility running. The threat of doing 2 300-yard shuttle runs were the incentive to reach a certain level of performance in these tests, but I fell a little short. The shuttle run is 25 yards down and back until you've covered 300 yards total in less than an average of 64 seconds for linemen, with only a 5-minute break in between. If you fail it, you run it again another day until you get it. I missed the right composite time by just a few seconds, so I'll have to do it again later. My body fat decreased by 2% to its current level of 15% since the first test in the summer, which is really good. I had a little stomach flu before the test, and my weight dropped from 285 pounds after dinner last night to 271 pounds this morning. My parents took me out for Mexican food last night, and I had a case of diarrhea today. Actually, I thought it was just gas, and then discovered quite by accident that it was diarrhea when I was on my way to testing. With no spare clothes to change into, I did the best I could in the bathroom and went on with the testing. I don't think anyone noticed, except for the poor guy who was testing my leg flexibility by stretching me out while I was on my back. Alright, now this is a part of the book that I had a quick debate with myself about whether to put it in or not. And obviously, it's pretty embarrassing. This is something that, if you were in my shoes, it'd probably be the worst thing that could possibly happen at this point in time in your career. You're very early into the program, and you want to make a good impression, and here you are doing what I just did right before testing. And I just wanted to show readers that, hey, I'm human. I'm not trying to make myself look any better than anybody else in this book. I'm going to be as open and honest with you about everything that goes on, including things with myself. And I also wanted to say that if I'm being this open and honest this early in the book about something like this, then what can you expect for the rest of the book? I'm going to continue this the whole time and really show you the inside blood and guts of the program and everything that goes on as best I can. After testing, I got my equipment fitted, and they gave me 2 new pairs of shorts, my jersey, which is number 53, shoes which fit like a dream, and a media guide. We put our jerseys and red shorts on, and then headed out to the field for photo day. I got my mugshot for the program taken, along with an action shot, a team photo in the bleachers, and a team panoramic photo on the field. After that, 8,000 people streamed into the stadium to get autographs. The freshmen didn't have seats in the field, so we set up in the stadium seats, which actually turned out to be better because we were out of the sun. Even though we were pretty far up, people still lined up for our signatures. I signed my name at least 100 times on posters, footballs, t-shirts, notebooks, and whatever else fans brought in with them. We had a team meeting after photo day, and on the way out, I borrowed some food that was laying in the varsity locker room and headed back to the dorm for the rest of the day. The 1998 season. The regular practice day goes something like this. Classes in the morning and done by 2 in the afternoon at the latest. The team meeting starts promptly at 2, and we go over any important issues or news about the upcoming game. The team then breaks up into positions, and each group goes to their coach's office to analyze game and practice film. Scout team guys are dismissed to go lift, get taped, relax, or do whatever they need to do before practice starts. At 3:30 the whistle blows and we get going. Warm-up and stretching is done within your positions. Those coaches have you for about 45 minutes to go over specifics. Then everyone gathers in the main field and we start running plays as a scout team offense into the first and second string defenses and vice versa with the scout team defense. The scout teams mimic what our opponents will most likely do, so we do our best, but most often we just get demolished. The intensity grows quickly through the rest of the practice, broken only by a short session during which we do special teams, and culminates with intense play. Monday and Wednesdays, we run 2 gassers. Gassers are what we do for conditioning, and one gasser consists of sprinting sideline to sideline twice for 2 round trips. The other days of practice vary with intensity depending on when the game is. The day immediately before the game is always just a half-hour walkthrough in sweats. The 2 or 3 days before that, usually Tuesday and Wednesday, are very intense. One interesting thing I've noticed this first year as well as the following years is that the scout team tends to mature very quickly. We start out as a bunch of guys who don't know each other and have never played with each other, but when we're facing the top-ranked defenses and prodded by the coaches to perform, it's amazing how quickly we do develop into a group that's 10 times better than where we were at the start of the week. After practice, many guys finish their lifting, shower, and then go eat at the training table. Then, for freshmen, study hall is held from 7 to 9 p.m. It all makes for a long day. Monday, August 24th, 1998. The first day of classes was okay, and then came the moment we've all been waiting for, the first practice. I got to the locker room early and got my new equipment. A pair of grass shoes, which I hear don't feel too good, a t-shirt, jock, helmet, and later on I got my practice jersey. After our team meeting, I got my ankles taped and had a little time to relax before heading out to the field for punt snaps. I thought I did pretty well with my snaps. I didn't have any wild ones like some of the other guys. When practice began, I joined the O-line in the pit and stretched out. I went with the centers and we did some basic blocks on each other, focusing on footwork and hand placement. I was then used as a body in the defense, while with the first-string guys ran plays against us. We then went to the field and broke into scout teams. I switched with both the run and the pass teams because they needed a center to rotate. After a couple plays, in which we literally got blown away, I realized we were going up against the number 1 and 2 defenses. Most of the guys on the scout team were new to practice today, so many of us had a tough time adjusting. It's been a while since a lot of us have practiced in full pads. The defense got mad at us a couple times because of miscommunications and minor mistakes that accompanied the first day of practice. One of the biggest problems we had was a center-quarterback exchange when snapping the ball. I know how to do this pretty well, but one of the quarterbacks just couldn't take a snap if his life depended on it. The quarterback started just holding the ball from the start, and the plays went a lot smoother and quicker. We then did some punt team against the first-team defense, and I alternated the job at center with Wes Cody, who was a scholarship offensive lineman in my class. Coach Solich talked a little bit at the end, and then we ran gassers. We did 2 of them in less than 40 seconds each, but we cheated a lot by stopping about 5 yards away from the opposite sideline, which shortened the running greatly. We also took off right when Coach raised his whistle, which gave us an extra second. I made those easily, and we circled up, stretched, and did 3 sets of 25 sit-ups. We then lifted, which I was really too tired to do, but I did anyways. Then I showered, and I sat through study hall orientation until 9:30. Then I was free. The practice was easier than I had expected, which kind of surprised me. It was very intense, however. They don't like you doing anything half speed. It was all very quick and precisely planned to the minute. Wednesday, October 26, 1998. It was a rainy afternoon, so we worked out in the Cook Pavilion, an indoor field located just to the east of the grass fields and connected to the campus recreation building. We were in shorts and jerseys, and the hitting was toned down a little bit, but sometimes not enough. Even though I'm just on the scout team, I'm working hard as I can. If I don't give a good effort, the guys I'm going against won't get a good look at what's coming on Saturday. Even though I'm not as good as the guys they will play against, I need to give it all that I've got so that I can help our guys be the best they can be. I snapped most of the punts during the scout team punt, and Nelson Barnes, the rush end coach, pulled me aside to make sure Coach Dan Young knew I could long snap. Young is an assistant offensive line coach and the kicking coach. I think this is a good sign that the coaches are noticing me and realizing what I can do, even if it's only long snapping for now. So far, I've gotten a new pair of shoes every day. Now I have shoes for dry turf, wet turf, and grass. Thursday, August 27th, 1998. This is a typical day for me. Wake up at 8 o'clock and shower if I have the energy. Eat breakfast at the dorm. Go to classes. I have 3 on Monday and Tuesday, and 2 the rest of the week. Eat lunch at the Hewitt Center. Go to the locker room and get taped and dressed. 2 o'clock meeting in the auditorium, usually about 15 minutes long. Then I'll go back to the locker room, because only the offensive linemen who have a chance of playing stay with Coach Teneper in his office. Then I'd either go lift or relax in the locker room until about 3:15. We'd watch TV, take a nap, finish getting dressed, or whatever. At 3:20, go snap to the punters. At 3:30, the practice starts. We warm up within our groups and do basic work with those guys. At 4:15, scout team runs plays against the defense. At 5 o'clock, special teams practice. And then at 5:30, practice ends. We start conditioning. 2 gashers on Monday and Wednesdays. Stretching with the O-line and sit-ups conclude the practice. And then we finish lifting if we have to. Then we shower, eat dinner at the Hewitt Center, study hall Monday through Thursday from 7:45 to 10 p.m., and then I'd go home to finish up any work, and then go to bed. Jim Tansey, a junior tackle, has been an enormous help to me so far. He's probably the easiest to talk to of all the older guys on the team, and I've learned a lot about the program from him. He's even shared some privileged information about stuff that I hope never happens to me. I'm not sure how much of it is true, but supposedly in the past few years, the older guys have kidnapped the younger linemen from their dorms late at night, taken them to a secluded location, and then done something disgusting to humiliate them. The story we heard was that the freshmen were all stripped naked and forced to watch porn. The first one to show any kind of arousal got beat up. Friday, August 28th, 1998. The day before a game is supposed to be light, and this one lived up to it. All I did was stretch and redo the 300-yard shuttle run, which I made in under the required 64 seconds. After that, I was pretty dead tired. I had done most of my lifts before practice, so all I had to do was heavy squat, which I kept light, doing 275 pounds for a set of 10 on my final one. Then I was officially worn out. I went to the locker room and relaxed for a while, and then went to a barbecue for athletes out on the track. I was free the rest of the night. Saturday, August 29th, 1998. Nebraska 56, Louisiana Tech 27. Today was the first time I watched a game as a Husker. It felt different from the other Husker games that I've attended, because I knew what went on to get here. I knew the difficulties the team had. I could better picture myself playing out there, like my dad always told me to, because I actually was up against these guys most of the week. The game seemed kind of slow, but it was still a win. As a player, I'm allotted 4 tickets that I can sign over to anyone, in addition to the free ticket that I get for myself to sit in the student section. During the week of the game, I have to go to the ticket office and designate who will get my tickets. Those people then have to show identification on game day at the will call window to receive those tickets. It probably would be fairly easy to just sign those over to someone and sell the tickets, but coaches have warned us against doing that, saying that there are stiff penalties for such actions. There were a lot of parties after the game. We kept the police busy as we hopped from house to house looking for a party that hadn't been busted up yet. Monday, August 31st, 1998. Today was the new typical Monday, where we practice only with our shoulder pads and helmets, otherwise known as half pads. The first half of practice, I just stood around in defensive formations for the offensive line to read. The second half, I was on the scout team running University of Alabama Birmingham plays against the number 1s and number 2s. I have a long way to go if I want to be an effective member of the O-line. My strength is increasing thanks to the proper nutrition I get from the training table combined with all the workouts, which are intentionally harder for freshman redshirts. Tuesday, September 1st, 1998. The temperature outside today was hot, and so were the tempers. On one play, rush end Chris Kelsey knocked down Nate Coulterman, a freshman scholarship tackle, who has quickly become known for his love of fighting. Coulterman then pushed Kelsey as he was walking back to the huddle, and a little shoving match took place. Chad Kelsey, Chris's brother, and fellow rush end, finally stepped in and stopped the fight before it got out of hand. In another battle, a defensive end and a running back got into a full-out wrestling match, and the defensive guy ended up sitting on top of the running back, punching him in the head. Other players quickly pulled him off, and he was thrown out by the refs who were there for our practices. I think this is only the beginning. Coach Teneper made a joke at my expense today. I was acting as a linebacker standing in the defensive formation, and Coach was talking about how the backer would shoot the gap between our linemen, making a motion for me to go there. I walked quickly up to the spot, and he said, "That's about as fast as you ran the 40. I didn't laugh, but some of the other guys found it funny. My blocking has gotten better. I am noticing a considerable difference in my body and strength. My weight hasn't increased much. I'm still hovering around 280 pounds. Wednesday, September 2nd, 1998. We practiced on the grass again today. I appreciate the free stuff we get, especially the clothes and shoes, but the grass spikes we were given are probably the worst pair of spikes I've ever owned. They kill my feet when I walk on solid ground. There's minimal cushioning, and the overall design is cramped in the toe area. I guess I'll have to live with it for now, but if I have any say in what type of shoe we get next year, I'm going to request a change. The scout team showed great improvement today. We made some big plays against the defense, but they had their fair share as well. It just goes to show you that you get better when you play with the best. Thursday, September 3rd, 1998. I really like practicing only 2 days a week in full pads compared to how it was in high school. Today we ran in just helmets, and the whole thing was pretty easy except for the heat. The team is ready for the game against the University of Alabama, but the pressure isn't there like it was last week. Tomorrow will be another half-hour practice where we do next to nothing. Saturday, September 5th, 1998. Nebraska, 38. University of Alabama Birmingham, 7. Eric Crouch started at quarterback for the first time in his career today and did really well. He definitely was a leader out there on the field. The offense and the defense really played a complete game. Now I know that's a really short breakdown of what happened, so I encourage you to go to Huskers.com and click on the records link, go to the scores for that year, and look up this game if you want to get more details on what happened. That was all I wrote down for this game, and I really don't remember much else. Tuesday, September 8th, 1998. We practiced on the grass yesterday and today, Monday in half pads and today in full pads. A lot of fights broke out on the other scout team. Nate Coulterman, a freshman offensive tackle, caused most of them and is developing an interesting reputation. I don't know how he can get away with picking so many fights with the number 1 defense. I would think that those guys would beat him to a bloody pulp, but instead, he just gets a lot of talk. Monday was Labor Day, so there were no classes. On days that we practice and there is no school, we usually get money for meals. This time, we received around $80. Anytime we're required to do anything football-related on a non-school day, the administration has a choice of whether they want to provide meals or just give us the money that those meals would have cost. Most of the players in charge of making this decision choose to get the money, which usually turns out to be a lot more than the average meal would cost. They assume we're going to a nice steakhouse to eat just like we do at the training table, when most of the guys actually just order a pizza or get fast food. Fortunately for us, this program has pretty deep pockets to be able to do this. There are many colleges and universities who aren't so fortunate, but most of their players never know what they are missing out on. Wednesday, September 9th, 1998. Today was the first time in 3 weeks of practice that the scout team actually got some coaching. Coach Charlie McBride, the defensive coordinator, took the offense and laid down a couple of rules for effort and explained some of the blocking techniques that we see every day on the cards. For the scout team, all the plays that we run against the number 1 and 2 defense are just drawn up on cards, with a line going from ourselves to the defender we're supposed to block, and we're supposed to figure it out from there. It's hard to know exactly what to do when you're just thrown into the line of fire and expected to figure it out yourself. This is probably one of my worst practices yet. I was tired and had a miserable time trying to block anybody. We each received a CD that Jack Stark, the team's sports psychologist, made. It has tracks that help with relaxation, focus, and better sleep. I'm going to use this tonight to help me rest up for tomorrow. We also received a warm-up suit that the guys on the travel squad are required to wear when they are traveling. I'll never be on the travel roster this year, but it's nice to get the same treatment. Thursday, September 10th, 1998. I had to buy a new pair of gray workout shorts today because the pair I got from the team was stolen last week. They cost about $30. I also saw the warm-up suit they gave us, and it was about $100. I went to the team doctor today to get a prescription for my allergies, which I later found out wasn't allergies but a head cold. We are only one of a handful of athletic departments with a full-time doctor and on-campus pharmacy where we can get our medicine for free. Just another benefit of being one of the best programs in the nation. Practice was good. Sam Goots, one of the scout team quarterbacks, and I worked on our snap before practice. Coach Solich gave us a pretty heated and emotional speech during the meeting today, making a strong turn from the casual 2-minute meeting we usually have. He talked about being mentally prepared for this game, ignoring the media, and making practices intense. The team leaves for California tomorrow at noon, so the guys that are left behind, like me, don't have any practice, only lifting. Saturday, September 12th, 1998. Nebraska 24, California 3. Eric Crouch set them up, and Monte Cristo knocked them down. Steady performances by both our quarterbacks paved the way. We were also carried by the strong running of our fullback, Joel Makovica, and I-back, Karel Buckhalter. The defense had a solid game as well, with several sacks. Monday, September 14th, 1998. After the win in California, Coach Solich called off practice to give us a day to get healed up and rested. He told everyone just to lift. During lifting, I was doing rack cleans, and I was on my last set of 5. I asked Archer if I could put on a little more weight for the last one. I got the first one pretty easy, but I failed on my next 3. I was frustrated, and Archer told me to quit. But I said, one more, and I got the next one and ended up finishing the entire set. I was really pumped after that, but I was also very sore with a sudden headache. Archer then used me as a motivational example to get the other guys going harder. After lifting, the red shirts had position meetings for the first time. Coach Young went over some of the most basic and fundamental aspects of the offense, such as similar plays and a couple of line calls, and how to block some of the most common defenses. This was very helpful because now we have a clue about what the older guys are doing in practice when they use us as blocking dummies. Tuesday, September 15th, 1998. We received a new pair of shoes today. I got a different style, and a better one, I think, than everyone else, because I have size 16 feet, a size in which the other shoes aren't produced. These are apparently given to us as travel shoes to go with our travel warm-ups. Hey, however they need to label that for our use, I don't care, as long as they keep giving it to us for free. Wednesday, September 16th, 1998. Today was probably one of the hardest practices yet. It was in full pads in the turf, and went just over 2 hours. The scout team got a lot of work done. We continued to improve and beat the defense on more plays. I finally began to move some people. I received an email from my dad telling me that he talked to graduate assistant Chad Stanley, who had helped out with my recruiting, and he said I've caught the coach's eye with my long snapping, my hard work in the weight room, and my overall development. This boosted my spirits even more. My hard work is beginning to pay off, and the coaches actually do notice the freshmen. It's impossible to tell if the coaches notice you in practice because they're more concerned about the older guys and getting them ready for the game. I'm feeling a lot better about my situation right now. Friday, September 18th, 1998. After the meeting yesterday, the freshman O-line guys talked about coming in Friday morning to do squats. I was under the impression that we could either go in the morning or we could go after practice like we always had. Apparently, when I was over-snapping to the punters, they made it mandatory for the morning, and I never heard about it. Today, when I ran into one of the other freshmen, he immediately pointed out that I wasn't at lifting, and said I was going to be punished. I heard many different stories from then on. I'd have to run stadium steps, I'd get red bellies, and I wasn't alone in this punishment. Justin Valencia and Andy Gwenup also missed the lifting. After an intense practice, we ran 2 gassers, and then, after the stretching and the breakdown, the entire O-line lined up to give us red bellies. I was pinned to the ground, but I didn't resist because there's no point to even try, and took one full force slap on my bare belly from every guy. Jason Schwab squirted water on me to heighten the effect, and Dominic Raiola did a flying drop slap on me. 8 hours later, I'm still sore, and I can pick out definite handprints on my stomach in the bruises. Saturday, September 19th, 1998. We had an early practice today, but I was unable to go because of a workshop for my education class. Not only did I miss out on practice, but I couldn't even get the money for the weekend either. I missed out on about $60. Monday, September 21st, 1998. Today I found out what it's like to be between a rock and a hard place. During the scout team punt station where I was working as the long snapper, Coach Charlie McBride told me to go 20 yards, not the whole way to the ball after it's kicked. I did this about 3 times, just jogging 20 yards and walking back. Coach McBride was apparently dissatisfied with my performance, and then I made a fatal mistake. He said, "Hey, 63, what are you doing, taking a walk?" And I replied, kind of sarcastically, "Well, what'd you tell me to do?" This, I quickly learned, was the improper tone and possibly the worst thing to say to this man. This completely set him off. He started off saying, "Don't you ever talk to me like that, you blank! You don't even deserve to be on that line, you blank! I could fit your guts into a thimble!" And so on for a good 2 minutes. without saying the same demeaning insult twice. Really, it was a masterpiece of ass-chewing. This got me pretty steamed up, and made me determined to show him what I could do. A few plays later, one of the coaches called a couple positions to go live, and I was included. I busted down that field as fast as I could, and pretty much made the tackle. Then Coach Craig Bull said, "Hey, 63, where'd you come from?" And I said I was a center, and he said, "You're not supposed to run that fast. This center's supposed to be slow." So, now I was getting yelled at for doing what another coach told me to do. When the station was over, I went over and talked to Coach McBride about this little misunderstanding. He said it was okay and added, "You'll be fine here." The other players and assistants really got a kick out of the coach yelling at me, saying it was one of the funniest cursings they had ever heard. I didn't laugh about it, but I do think it's kind of funny to be in that kind of situation. That sort of miscommunication seems to happen to me a lot. Different coaches have inspired their players in different ways. Coach Charlie McBride was definitely one of the coaches that led through fear and intimidation. However, if you were lucky enough to earn a spot on his good side, he was very loyal to you. As a defensive coordinator, his bloodlust attitude was easily picked up by his players, and the Black Shirts played great football because of him. Head coach Frank Solich led through example as best he could. He knows the game, he knows the techniques, and, if he has to, he'll get in there and show you how it's done. Solich always seemed to carry himself with a certain air of power, but at the same time, he never seemed entirely comfortable in his role as head coach. I sincerely believe that he should be remembered as one of the greatest assistant coaches ever for the Huskers. However, he failed as a head coach because he lacked certain qualities. I feel that he didn't have the organizational ability to look at the big picture and then lead his troops efficiently at the same time. I wish I could have had Tom Osborne as a coach. I can't help but think I missed out on something great. Coach Milt Tenneper led by reputation. His offensive lines were some of the best in the nation for several years, and he was well aware of it. For a new guy coming in, he either liked you from the start or he didn't, and there was very little you could do over the next couple of years to change that. He either saw you as a contributor or a dummy, and it was up to you to prove him wrong. Tenneper's glory years had just passed as I came in. His ability to go out and recruit, as well as to demonstrate techniques, was severely hampered by terrible ankle pain that required him to have his ankles completely fused. We had some very good recruits during my time, but we also had some catastrophic injuries, happened to most of them. He worked as hard as any other coach, and couldn't see himself doing anything other than coaching until the end of his career. Coach Dan Young, the assistant offensive line and kicking coach, was the most imitated coach among the team. His gravelly, congested drawl was heard being copied by players and younger coaches alike. His glory days were long gone before I showed up. A withered old man with a disposition to match, he was Tenneper's Ed McMahon, and that works on so many levels. His excessive drinking was rumored and legendary. His comb-over was also a thing of beauty. Apparently, no one had the nerve to tell him that his hair looked like a small animal died on his head. The best was when he would take off his hat during practice, run his fingers through it, and put his hat back on with a wild clump of 8-inch-long hair sticking out. Standing behind him on a few occasions, out of range of his vision, I would flick at this outcropping, drawing several suppressed laughs from the other guys. It seemed as though he had a very limited quota of positive things to say throughout the day, and he would save these very carefully. The best you could hope for was to hear nothing back from him. If you ever did receive a compliment, you knew you did something incredible. Receivers coach Ron Brown was a coach who gave a strong foundation for many athletes, not just his receivers. As the spiritual backbone of the team, he led many things, including Fellowship of Christian Athletes, as well as the post-game prayers in the middle of the field. He is a man of strong character and devotion, and was a great coach. One time, one of his receivers was dancing on Wednesday nights at a club that had an amateur night with prize money involved, which this player had won frequently. Coach Brown told him to stop, or he'd be off the team. The receiver needed the money more than the position, and so he got cut. Quarterbacks coach Turner Gill seemed to everyone the obvious choice to follow Coach Osborne's footsteps, and I can't help but wonder what would have happened if he was the head coach. After being a standout quarterback for the Huskers in the 80s, he brought a high level of energy and competition to the coaching staff. He should have succeeded Solich as well, but again, he was turned down. Nelson Barnes, the defensive ends coach, could have done his job without even showing up. That's according to some of his players, who said he never imparted many gems of wisdom to them, but what he lacked in ability, he made up for with energy. Craig Bull, the linebackers coach, was more of a distraction to the coaches than an assistant. Personal relationship issues overflowed into his work more than once, and in the end, it was just too hard to keep covering his tracks. I know I'm leaving out a few coaches, but I just didn't have enough interaction with them to really know them. Saturday, September 26, 1998. Nebraska 55, Washington 7. It warmed up through the week, and Saturday was another hot game day. The Huskers burned out the field with the best show of the year. We finally had all the starters healthy, and we looked like a different team than the one that played the past 3 games. This could be the turnaround point that makes us more deserving of a national championship bid. Even with the hot weather, many freshmen who didn't suit up chose to show their affiliation the hard way by wearing their warm-up outfit. Apparently, some of the guys were so concerned that they be seen as football players that they would brave a heat stroke just for some recognition, mostly of the female kind. Wednesday, September 30th, 1998. This week had been pretty easy compared to the rest. I think the guys and the coaches are taking it kind of easy after the big game last Saturday, because now we're really clicking with how we're operating and we don't want to wear anybody out. I've noticed that the coaches and the older players tend not to focus too much on their freshmen. When the scout team does a good job and breaks a play for long yardage, the coaches yell at the defense and usually make us do it again, but they never compliment us. The graduate assistants working with the scout team give us pats in the back, but they really have no authority with the other coaches. Coach Solich is in a strange position right now. I have no doubt that he could be a good coach, and I know he's a great man. His control of the team shows that he has amassed an amazing amount of respect, most of which was passed on from being an assistant coach for 19 years, and also being the play caller during those games. However, there's one thing I've noticed about Coach Solich that hurts his image, and that's the way he talks to the team. He uses way too many verbal pauses, like and ah, and so on. Most of the time, they happen just when he's reading stuff like stats or other team info. I think when he's reading this information or saying things from memory, he loses a lot of the meaning that he's trying to get across due to these pauses. But when he's talking about things directly from the heart, he hardly uses any of these pauses and sounds like an entirely different person. I think the media is picking up on this, but for now, there is too much respect for the program to start this kind of childish finger-pointing. I think in 3 or 4 years, we're going to have one of the best offensive lines that Nebraska has ever seen. The freshman class right now is one of the biggest to date and holds more potential than in any spot on the field. I can't wait to be a part of it. Here's a little hindsight section. Solich never turned out to be a stirring speaker. At best, he seemed like a relayer of information, devoid of any original insight or motivation. When he tried his best to motivate, it sometimes caused laughter. His broken speech clouded many of his statements, and it made some of them truly incomprehensible. Words seemed to trip out of his mouth, falling over one another, sprinkled with a few common phrases so frequently used that every new speech sounded like the last. Now, one criticism that I've gotten about my book is that I have come across a little hard on Solich. And let me get this straight. It's not that I'm holding a grudge against him or anything like that. I think he was a good coach, and he proved himself over many years of coaching at the high school level and in the college level that he can be very effective, and he's done a lot of good things at Ohio in the past couple of years as well. But it's just, he's the guy at the top, and he's the one who gets the attention. And a lot of media people that did interviews with him during these years, they'll even tell you that sometimes his answers at press conferences and after games and practices were almost impossible to understand. There was one quote that was published in the University of Nebraska Lincoln school paper, in one of the little comic sections, and it was put out there in word for word, just as he said it, and literally it did not make a word of sense. So, take it for what it's worth. I think if you're a leader and you can't communicate clearly, then you're probably not going to be as effective as you should be. Saturday, October 3rd, 1998. Nebraska 24, Oklahoma State 17. We had some of the worst showings all year in this game. As Coach Solich put it, the game was won because we had no turnovers, broke a few big plays including a punt return, and lost very few yards to penalties compared to the 59 yards of penalties by Okie State. We lost the game statistically, but we won by the score. Basically, we played a really good team and came out ahead in the end. Monday, October 5th, 1998. Today we practiced in helmets and sweats. Coach Solich said that this time of the year, the Monday practices are usually just in helmets. The practice was mostly mental, running through lots of plays and making sure everyone knows where they're supposed to go. In the Monday meetings, we always evaluate the previous game by reviewing the stats and seeing how many goals we met. Someone on the staff set up a program that lists the goals for offense, defense, and special teams. In the column for each of the opponents, that stat is displayed in green if we achieved it, and in red if we did not. These were displayed on the video screen at the front of the auditorium, and Coach Solich goes through each goal individually, making sure to note when we did better or worse than previous weeks. This is a fairly effective way to get across that we are playing as a team and need to think as a team. It's obvious that the more goals we reach, the better the outcome of the game. The goals on these charts were the common stats that you'd see after pretty much any game, like total yards, yards per play, yards per punt, completions, all those kind of things. So those are what we looked at, and we usually set those pretty high. We wanted to push ourselves and make us be the best we could be. Tuesday, October 6th, 1998. Nate Coulterman got into another fight today, hard to believe. I was on the other scout team offensive group, so I didn't get to be a part of it, but I saw the last half of it when someone threw a helmet and hit Nate hard enough to cut his eye and break a bone in his face. At the end of the practice, the older O-line guys made a new rule that if there's a fight, anyone who is not in there throwing punches and raising hell is going to get a red belly. So much for my pacifist attitude. Wednesday, October 7th, 1998. I like Wednesdays. Wednesdays roll around, and the week is over for me. It's the last full pads practice of the week. There's no lifting, and my classes are incredibly easy. I actually skipped calculus this morning so I could sleep in until 10. I would have gotten up in time for class, but every night after we return home from study hall, there's always something going on here on the dorm floor. I can't get to bed before midnight because everyone else is having fun. I don't want to miss out. I think I'll like it a lot better when I have my own apartment where I can study when I need to and get to bed as early as I want. But for now, the goal is to have as much fun as possible. Thursday, October 8th, 1998. We received a grade slip from most of our classes today. They were in our lockers, which amazes me because it would take a lot of effort. Our grade slip has to get out to every teacher for every athlete. The teacher has to figure out the student's grade, and then get it back to the football office, and then someone has to distribute these to all the players after reviewing them. If someone is getting below a C in a class, they get a note and are told that the parents will be notified about the grade. I think this is a great way to keep the players in check, and it was also a wake-up call for me because 2 of the 3 slips that I got were C's, and the other one was an A. I never got a C in high school, so this was kind of a surprise for me. I think I'll get a tutor in calculus, but I don't foresee any real problems with the others. Tutors are available free for all athletes for any class, and they can be assigned very quickly. This is just another perk, and also another reason why Nebraska is one of the highest-rated student-athlete institutions. I expect to do pretty well in all my classes, as I have done in the past, but this is a whole new world in college. I've really tried to be careful to make time to study and get my stuff done, otherwise all the activities like football and dorm life will easily get in the way. The lure of slacking off just a little bit is so tempting. Also, with all the time and energy commitments that football has required so far, it's very hard to find time to do work outside of class. It's even harder to stay awake while in class. My body is in a constant recovery phase, jumping from lifting to practice, and every chance I get to sit quietly and do nothing is a chance for my body to finally shut down. I'm sure my professors hate looking into the crowd and seeing a student fast asleep, but I can't help it. It seems to be a theme with me. My senior year in high school, I was voted most likely to sleep through graduation. The team seems ready to take on Texas A&M. The defense got yelled at quite a bit this week, and there were some problems between some of them. For example, Jason Wiltz and Mike Rucker, starting defensive linemen and rush end respectively, got into a little pushing match the other day. I hope these guys keep their heads clear and focus on the game and show the nation what Nebraska football can really do. Saturday, October 10th, 1998. Nebraska 21, Texas A&M 28. This was a very disappointing loss to Texas A&M, our first loss in 20 games. The whole state is in shock, but it was inevitable. No one can be on top forever, and furthermore, we were in the mindset that this was going to be a cakewalk. We figured that the reputation of Nebraska football would make us good, and we just coasted through everything. I think this game served as a wake-up call for us. We were ranked second in the nation before this game. There's no doubt that we'll drop a few notches after losing to the Aggies, the number 18 team in the nation. Monday, October 12th, 1998. The players were all very quiet in meetings today, sitting in shame while Coach Solich went through the pitiful summary of goals that we didn't come close to achieving in our loss to Texas A&M. His tone was much more concerned, angry, and disappointed. He spoke surprisingly fluently and explained how we needed to change our overall attitude. He explained again that when teams play us, it is their big game of the season. Everyone wants a piece of the guy at the top, and so we have all become marked men. We have to think that every game is big, but we also have to take one game at a time. Every game matters and the national championship is on the line. There is still a chance we could go to the championship game. Ohio State has no more ranked teams on its schedule, so if no upsets occur, they will be in the game. Every other team below us plays at least one ranked team, and we play up to 5 ranked teams. To be in contention, we have to buckle down and dominate every team. It would also be necessary for a couple of teams below us to lose 1 or 2 games, which gives us a pretty low chance to pull this off. It would also help if we could have a rematch with Texas A&M in the Big 12 championship. Coach Solich later talked to the whole offense, including the freshmen. He explained how we ran the option way too much in this last game, and how in practice, instead of doing an option drill, we will now do an inside run drill. We then went to Coach Tenneper's office, and he just asked us who will be practicing and who was hurt. My fellow freshman and I quickly and quietly left the somber office area and hurriedly pressed for the elevator to take us away from the scene of anguish, and down to the locker room. From all the way around the lobby, we could hear Coach Tenneper yelling at the older guys with the most intensity that I had ever heard from him. Once the doors closed, no one really knew what to say on the ride down. Everyone was much more reserved in practice. No one talked or joked around. Everyone listened intently to the coaches, and we basically punished ourselves by working harder and quicker than we usually do. No one likes to lose, especially when you're part of a team that's known for winning. The practice was intense, but it also seemed very short. That's probably because we were working so hard that we lost track of time. A highlight of the practice was when I got to play I-back, when the scout team linemen showed the defensive line the Kansas formations and blocking styles. I actually got to run a little bit too, and didn't do too badly. It helped that the defense was supposed to go half speed, but I still found the holes and ran it pretty well. I think this will be a turning point for the program. We found out that our reputation can't win games. We have to step up and play our best every Saturday. Every game is a big game. Tuesday, October 13th, 1998. Today was a good day for the defense. They had the momentum from the beginning of practice and kept it till the very end. They got over feeling sorry for themselves and stepped it up and finally dominated the scout team. The players were much more vocal today, and they hyped each other up and talked trash to us whenever they could. The coaches seemed pleased with this practice. They know we need a big win this weekend, and they are ready to produce. Wednesday, October 14th, 1998. Today's practice was one of the most intense we've had in a couple weeks. Luckily, we went in a good rotation, so I was able to take a break now and then. The varsity offense had a bad day from what I heard. There were a lot of mistakes, and the guys seemed disappointed, but they know what they have to do. They need to put some huge yards on this Saturday if they want to keep up the tradition of being the best offensive line in the nation. Coach Solich has been very focused in meetings this week. He has changed his tone dramatically and tells us what he expects. He's obviously disappointed by the loss, but he still gives us speeches assuring that there's a chance to be the best. He stays positive, and that helps to keep us positive. Now that he is taking more control of this program, what he says has more legitimacy. I can tell the older guys respect Coach Solich, but a couple of them apparently still have their hearts with Coach Osborne.